viewers, and welcome to Pop Culture Cult. I'm Sean.
I'm Janice.
And welcome to episode 2 of She-Hulk called Superhuman Law. We are going to review, discuss, react to everything we just watched.
Right.
A little bit of housekeeping from last week that we talked about. We'll do this maybe one more time. We're coming from this from the MCU point of view. We're not super familiar with the comics, so if this is your first time watching one of our reviews, that's where we're at. So we're just kind of playing along with that section. And we just watched it and walked in here to record. So we were instantly reacting. We don't watch along with it because I don't want to spend an hour and a half editing something that's going to be 20 minutes long.
Right.
So we've had that question in the past. I understand the question. We are reacting to what we just saw. We just schwa. But if that's not your thing, thanks for the click. Come back later. We do trailer reactions all the time. With all that being said, there's one thing I want to talk about before we get into the review about the show itself.
Okay.
And that was when in the past we've had other MCU shows, Moon Knight, WandaVision, Falcon Winter Soldier. I woke up in the morning excited that it was Marvel Day.
Yeah.
And I'm always excited when it's Star Wars Day. Today, we got done with our workout and came home, and I'm like, oh yeah, we got She-Hulk.
Yeah.
And I wasn't like boiling with excitement.
Okay.
Which I felt weird. And now, I see what they're doing with this show.
Okay.
One of the things that they've done, they kind of laid out for us was WandaVision was a standalone thing. Captain America and Captain Winter Soldier was its own thing. But they laid Easter eggs and talked about things that happened outside of that show, inside the MCU, but outside of those shows. Same with Loki. Same with Captain Miss Marvel. Not so much with Moon Knight. I mean, there was little like conversations, but it wasn't like whatever. This show, everything means something, including the websites and the banner ads on the side of the website. This show is about a woman and being what it's like to be a woman in a corporate field or whatever, what it's like to be a woman and her taking agency in herself. It's also an Easter egg hunt.
Yeah, this one definitely feels like it's got a lot more Easter eggs in it, which is interesting because they do everything for a reason, right? So they've kind of been working forward, and then there's going to be some big reveal.
I have several thoughts. I told her I'm going to try to keep this as short as we can, but I have all kinds of thoughts. The episode starts with her going to the lawyer's bar, Legalese, which is a great name for a lawyer bar, and them cheering for She-Hulk and Nikki, her best friend, kind of telling her like that you need to Hulk up and
Embrace
whatever.
it. Yep.
And then they have drinks and they have a good time. The DA shows up and fires her because they lost the case because she's a liability in the classroom. She's a liability in the courtroom. And I love the microaggression. That's a really bad way of wording it. I love the representation of the microaggression that DA had towards She-Hulk and asking for Jen.
Right. Yeah.
Which they've been kind of laying that kind of whole process.
Yeah. I felt really conflicted with the DA, because he seemed sorry to have to fire her, and
Right.
she even said, "What did you expect me to do? Just let people get hurt or whatever?"
Right.
And he said, "No, you did the right thing." But then he fired her. I mean, I guess, why he fired her, but then, like you said, he was intimidated by her hulked out, and so I'm just very conflicted by which side he's on.
I think ultimately, he's on the side of law, but any case moving forward with Jennifer involved, there's going to be some kind of jury bias to her being there.
Probably, yeah.
And that affects the DA's ability to prosecute any superhuman
Right.
who is being
Like I
brought
said,
up.
I understand
Yeah,
why they
yeah.
fired her, but
But I don't like him as a person. Like he's not Holden Holloway from GLK and H. He's not that, but I just don't like him. Like, stand up for your people, like,
yeah.
especially somebody with an obvious track record of being a good
Yeah.
assistant DA.
Yeah.
Then the montage of her trying to find a job, and then
The title card changing from attorney at law to attorney for hire.
attorney for hire, which I thought was really good. Her and Nikki sitting on the couch with Jennifer looking for another career field, right? And on that screen, there was a bunch of there's how to find Ant-Man, which is like a Where's Waldo thing or whatever.
Yeah, it kind of felt like a BuzzFeed type of website.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Yeah.
With just like different things, Norse mythology and whatever. And then there's a thing in the corner that was man with metal claws gets in a bar fight.
Yeah.
We as Marvel fans have been asking for wins now that we have mutants in the MCU. When are we getting Wolverine?
Yeah.
He's going to be the first one introduced. So they're laying these Easter eggs. It's Taron Egerton. I'm planting my flag in the ground. Have you seen Taron lately? He's gigantic. Not gigantic, but he's like ripped. It's Taron Egerton. He's going to be Wolverine. He's going to show up at the end of the show. I'm doing it. I'm planting the flag. It was Mephisto.
And there was also why is there a giant statue?
Yes, I forgot about that one.
In the ocean.
In the ocean,
which is an Eternals.
Which I really appreciate
reference.
too, because everybody's been complaining, why haven't we addressed this?
Right.
And we just haven't had the chance to address it because the timeline with everything is kind of forward and backwards and timey-wimey and shit, man. So, and they haven't really laid down where this is, but that puts it behind after what happens in Eternals.
Right.
And then with the Abomination of Wong fight at the end, showing up on the news. So that's in the middle of Shang-Chi. So we kind of get an idea of where everything's being laid out.
Right. We're at least after the Eternals and Shang-Chi and the timeline.
Her having to, Jen having to go to her parents' house for dinner and dealing with her aunt and uncle and her dad actually being a good dad and her mom trying to hook her up with somebody. Like, it's just, I just love that little moment of, I don't want to call it levity, but realism.
Yeah.
Especially for somebody like Jennifer, who has spent her whole life trying to be recognized for her value as a smart person or a lawyer or whatever. And then she gets to her house and just everybody's talking over each other and over her and about her, but not to her. And then her dad takes her out to the garage and actually asks her, "How are you?"
Right.
Which I thought was just a nice little subtle touch.
Yeah. I mean, they already have a Hulk in the family, right?
Right.
So it's not like Ms. Marvel or, where everybody's like, "Oh, you're the, She-Hulk.
You're the light girl."
Yeah. They, it's like, it's just a regular family dinner. Like,
right.
Nothing is, you feel like nothing's really any different, than a family dinner before she was She-Hulk. But then, something has happened. And so her dad kind of takes her aside and like, okay.
Yeah.
Which it's totally our family.
It's totally how we are as a family.
Yeah.
Not that we don't pause and say, "Okay, how are you doing? Like, let's talk about what's going on with your lives and whatever."
But when we all get together, it's just
there's the two of us, 4 kids, 7,000 grandkids. So
it's not 7,000.
Okay, it's
8.
8 grandkids.
4,
4,
6.
6.
I added 3
Anyways,
or 2.
we don't count puppies, do we? I don't. Okay, no. But I said this when it happened. It's nice to see after Miss Marvel. It's nice to see family members who are just accepting of their kids the way they are, because we haven't in previous issue, especially with Moon Knight,
right?
And kind of what happens with Wanda. Her parents were good, but she wasn't good
but
for
we're
her
moving
kids.
forward,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We've talked about this before with just the societal acceptance of superheroes. Somebody's jumping from a building or swinging from a building or saving a kitten or whatever, that it's not a thing. And so now we're seeing that um, kind of more on the family level, the day-to-day level
Yeah.
of it's okay, cool.
This
Good thing.
is, you're doing good. You're doing good. How, I don't know, how you feeling? Like, I just really appreciate that they're spending that time, because in normal society, when somebody comes out as queer or gay or lesbian or whatever, trans, whatever, a lot of families just shut those people out.
Right.
And this is kind of a physical, or at least on-screen representation of a family. Like, I love you for who you are, even if you turn big and green,
Right.
or you love somebody as different.
Normalizing a difference. And as you, which kind of illustrates, I guess it's going to say proves, but not really, illustrates the point that the more you normalize it, the more something is out there and talked about and everybody knows about and whatever, the easier it gets to be different in your day-to-day life with your family
and friends and coworkers and whatever. Jen going into the office for her first day, all confident, and she gets the door, she doesn't know how to open it. Probably lost in her train of thought. Like, this is gonna be the best day ever.
I do it all the time. I always push when it's a pull.
Holloway like walks her in the building and pretty much tells her that I hired you to be the face of the superhuman department, to represent those of enhanced abilities. I want you as She-Hulk whenever you're in the office or
in court. Yeah.
And it's again a representation of men of power using a pretty girl to get the attention, to get people to come to you to do whatever it is.
Right.
And he even talks about, even with taking the Blonsky case, we took this pro bono just for the advertising.
Right. Yeah.
And they've, in 2 episodes, they've done a really good job of just like subtly putting, now it hasn't been subtle at the times, but stuff like this was really subtle. They hired her to be the pretty girl on the poster.
Right.
It happens to be that she's a really good attorney.
Right.
But she's the pretty girl on the poster that you're going to drive down the street and you're like, oh, hey, the pretty girl, maybe my law firm's good for me, like, kind of thing. And it's just, I love that they're laying that out in front of us. And I love that the fragile fanboys on the internet are having a hissy fit about it.
Of course they are.
I just love it. I just love it. She gets to her corner office with Holloway. The whole walk, and everybody taking photos and like tripping over themselves as She-Hulk's walking through the firm, and Holloway kind of laying out what he expects of her in the walk, and then she's like talking to us and like not paying attention to him at all.
Yeah.
We get introduced to Nikki's in there. The whole negotiation to get Nikki and nothing else.
He's like, I could care less who your paralegal is.
You need to negotiate for more money,
right?
Stuff,
and she didn't ask at all, like, what her responsibilities were. which was bad on her.
Right. We get introduced to Pug. Pug's in the comics, from what we've learned, is a really good guy. Is there for her. Another kind of person who doesn't care who she is,
Yeah.
as Jen or She-Hulk,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
And as somebody who works in an office, I 100% appreciate the map to the best bathrooms in the building, because it's totally a thing in our building
Totally
as
a
well.
thing. The case that they give her is the first case is Emil Blonsky,
Emil, yeah.
Abomination, and she first says no because of the conflict of interest, because of the fight between him and Bruce, and Holloway tells her at least go meet the client before you say no to this
Right.
case, and then also gives her kind of an ultimatum of you either take this case or you don't have a job here. So I don't remember what the facility was called, but it's DODC is running it, but it's a different.
It's not the raft.
It's not the raft,
Right.
but there's a different.
It's in the desert.
And it's from
California,
the
Nevada.
comics. It's in like the desert in Nevada in the comics, but in the show they really didn't like Death Valley or whatever kind of
Yeah,
location card.
yeah.
But the guards have different kind of labeling on there, so I'm wondering if they're outsourcing their guards from somebody else. We'll get into some speculation stuff in a minute.
Right.
But her going in and the guard like, don't cross the yellow line,
Yeah.
and don't do this, and then the little Silence of the Lambs joke, and the guard had nothing to, like, no,
Yeah.
this is serious. We're in, and we had a friend who worked at a triple max security prison, actually out in California, in the desert in California.
Yep.
And he was like, yeah, there was you had no time to relax when you were on the job, and no joking and stuff, and so it was kind of a like, all right, that's a good
Yeah, that's how it is.
Her Jen's conversation with Emil and him finding the inner peace, and a lot has taught himself how not to change, and that he's a better person now and he just wants to get out.
But she totally, like, she wasn't buying that. She
Right.
wasn't on board until he talked about the fact that they gave him the super soldier serum.
Yeah.
And so the government that he had come in to work for basically did this to him. I mean, to a certain extent. Then he got Bruce's blood, which wasn't necessarily. I think he went and got
if I remember, it's been a while since we watched Incredible Hulk, but I think he goes and gets.
He goes in and he forces the lab guy to inject him. So Thunderbolt Ross wasn't necessarily involved in that part, but he was the one who injected him with the super soldier serum. So once she saw that, she totally perked up. Like, wait a minute, this isn't necessarily your fault.
And I think if she hadn't gone through becoming She-Hulk as it is, I don't think she would have taken the case. But now that she's kind of gone through that, I kind of was thrust into this position.
Yeah.
And now I've kind of got to go with it.
Right.
And if he was thrust into this position,
and people of authority kind of using you, you know, to get what they
need, the pretty girl on the poster or whatever. Yeah. And so it definitely hit home once he laid that out in front of her.
Yeah.
The haiku joke was just funny. Him trying to go read through. We really like cinema wins around here. So Tim Roth is always a win.
Yes.
No matter what he is in. One of my favorite shows of all time was Lie to Me, where he was interviewer for a police department to find lies as people were talking. And it was never meant to be a long-running show. I think it got like 3.5 seasons or whatever. But he's great in that.
Yeah.
And he's great in everything that he does with
Four Rooms.
Yeah,
Rob Roy.
4 Rooms. Oh, yeah. So I'm happy he's back as Abomination. And not just as Abomination, but as Emil.
Yeah.
I'm really happy that they're bringing people in from a movie that necessarily wasn't MCU until they kind of retroactively kind of fit it in. But I just really like that they did that. Like and I'm here for Tim Roth just chewing up the scenery and just like just.
And they did I know it's a little bit past this point, but they did sort of address the fact that Mark Ruffalo is not Edward Norton.
Yeah, yeah.
in when
I was a
he
different
was
person back then.
I was a different person back then, literally.
Right, right, right. I just love that kind of like wink and nod. It would be really funny to have Edward Norton. I don't know if Edward would do it, but just have him be in a cameo at some point in time.
Do that meme with the guy and the girl, and the guy's looking back,
Yeah.
right? Except it's Bruce walking this way and Edward Norton walking this way,
It's from season 2 of Umbrella Academy when 5 is going and Elliot. It's Elliot Page, but I can't remember. It starts with a V. It's going the other way, and they're like,
yeah.
But yeah, it'd be kind of fun to have that in there. She calls Bruce and has like a big old long spiel.
Totally memorized because
Totally memorized.
or rehearsed because she's just like, and he's like, yeah.
I'm not saying I haven't done that. I totally have done that. But him saying I was a different person back then. We've had a pen pal relationship back and forth. We've kind of forgiven each other. You're calling to tell me you took the job.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm calling to tell you I'm taking the job. And then she calls Holloway and says, I'm taking the job. And then he tells her to turn on the news, and then the news is the Wong fight and with Abomination and stuff.
Right.
And the post-credit scene is just really fun. So some stuff that kind of happens that we just are kind of skipping over because I want to talk about the speculation part of it now. When Jen calls Bruce, they have this really fun conversation. I love the practicalness that they're doing in this show with real world things. This is not speculation. The real world things in Hulk hands.
Yeah.
Hulk has got like a Samsung 22 plus, whatever,
Yeah.
the big, huge, honking huge one, and it looks like one of the old Zoolander phones,
Yeah.
like in his hand. He has this big old long conversation with her where she does all the talking, and on the desk they kind of show there's some lab equipment and the how to train to be a Hulk binder and a bunch of different things.
And the air horn.
And then they pan back, and he's on the Sakaar ship.
Yep.
In space.
So where is he going with all of the how to be a Hulk stuff?
Going back to Sakaar, and we're gonna get Son of Hulk. That's the only thing that makes any sense. Like the idea of them. Mark loves playing this character.
Yeah.
Mark loves playing this character, and he loves playing in this universe. He's also a very serious actor who can run off and do different things.
Yeah.
But he will always come back to this for this character. Yeah. And he actually went to Kevin Feige and said, "This is the story arc that I think we should do with the Hulk." And a lot of people are like, they've done Hulk dirty. Well, part of the problem they've done Hulk dirty, quote unquote, is Universal owns the distribution rights. So, and they're not going to give it up for $5 and a bag of baseballs.
Yeah.
Because they know what it's going to bring, and they can't work with Universal like they worked with Sony,
right?
Marvel,
right?
And so they can't just do a standalone Hulk movie,
right?
However, World War Hulk is laid out there. If he's going back to Sakaar and getting in the sun, and that back to the Easter egg conversation, like they dropped this thing, and it's just like,
yep.
What does this mean?
Yep.
With the Sakaar ship showing up in the first episode, and now him being gone,
right?
Bruce is out of the show. We've set up Jen as She-Hulk,
right?
We can move
forward. Right. Yep. And then Emil talking about his 7 pen pals.
7 pen pals.
Buying land together. Sounds like a pyramid scheme to me.
It sounds like a polygamous cult. We watched New Rockstar's Easter egg breakdown, and they brought up that there's a scene in the trailer where there's 7 younger-looking girls in white outfits and green crowns, like
flower crowns.
Flower crowns. I was going to say wreaths, but yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
So I did some math. Elena, U.S. agent, Zemo, Echo, Ross, Val, Hawkeye.
Yeah.
And they have told everybody that is in this conversation of Thunderbolts that you need to clear your schedule for next summer. So, for my speculation part, I'm not sticking my flag in Wolverine and Taron Egerton yet, but I think the 7 pen pals is what's going to have to be Thunderbolts.
Yeah. They'll have to figure out what they're going to do about Ross.
Right.
I mean, they could do a Tarkin, but he's not going to be able to be in it a whole lot.
I trust they will figure out something. They figured out something with Chadwick, so
Yeah.
they will do it in universe.
Well, and he could have
filmed
some stuff already because
they knew for a long time that he was
sick.
he
Yeah,
was
they've
sick.
known. I mean, like 10 years.
So I'm wondering if he filmed some stuff with like his son, and his son is the one who's going to take over this Thunderbolts kind of thing.
Maybe.
Because it's been too big of an underlying background story for too long to not to fulfill it.
Yeah.
And Thunderbolts is supposed to be the end of Phase 4.
Right.
And so I just feel like it just lays out too well to say my 7 pen pals. We can go live on an island somewhere. With a chance with a helicarrier or a Quinjet or.
So were you counting Emil as one of the 7?
No.
Okay, because I was going to say that would be 8.
Yeah. He said, I just want to go and live on an island with me and my 7 pen pals.
Yeah.
So So I just and they're already filming Echo. So there's just stuff. It just lays out too well.
I wonder if they could bring in somebody like Vincent D'Onofrio's character,
Kingpin. I think Kingpin's going to be because we know we're getting Daredevil,
right,
and all of that. I think Kingpin's going to be
busy
with all of that. I only pick Hawkeye because Hawkeye is in multiple runs of the Thunderbolts because of his time as Ronin. But they've laid out too much stuff. It's Yelena, U.S. agent, and Zemo. We know that for sure. And Echo makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
And so those 4, and Val is like kind of the point person for all of them.
Yeah.
So she might be the one who actually takes over the Thunderbolts, and they name it in his name. And we have got to a place where we're not going to get Moon Knight in the group. We're not going to get Black Knight in the group.
Moon Knight's going to go on the Blade. On the
Blade
Vampire
Suns. Midnight Suns. This actually worked. Midnight Suns track. So there's kind of something there that's kind of, or they might save 1 or 2 of the reveals for the Thunderbolts in the Thunderbolts movie.
Yeah.
Like they did with Hawkeye and Black Widow.
Yeah.
So it would make sense. But like I said when we started this review, like I wasn't excited about the show. I wasn't not excited, but I wasn't like, oh my god, I woke up and I'm like, it's She-Hulk Day.
Yeah.
Now I am. Because I love the fourth wall breaking. I love the story they're telling about Jen and what she's doing. But also, I'm enjoying the Easter egg hunt that's going on that we had in WandaVision.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying every show in the MCU needs to have this. I loved what they did with Moon Knight and telling that story and how they told that story and have it be a self-sustaining thing on its own. But I also like this part too.
Yeah, absolutely.
For us as more experienced MCU fans, it adds to that, and so we can go to the new people and like, okay, so this means, and the MCU this means, and then the comics. I grab somebody from the comics. I'm like, okay, so tell me about the comic. So overall, I really like this episode.
Yep.
as our thoughts on She-Hulk. I almost said Moon Knight. She-Hulk episode 2, Superhuman Law. Let us know what you thought of this episode and our reaction and discussion to it in the comments down below. Please be nice. That's a requirement around here. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. Follow us on all social media stuff, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Links are in the description down below. And until next time, cult members, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.